today. I got to know as a freshman, and she became one of our student leaders and was famous for saying, does anybody want to volunteer for this? And if nobody volunteered, she'd say, well, then you've been voluntold that you're going to be the person doing this. She, big in RHA, all that kind of stuff. Loves her mom and daddy, who, by the way, are here today. Right here, mom and dad. Because we know that beatas don't grow on trees. You just can't go to a tree and pick them up. They have to have mommies and daddies. So we appreciate that very much. She's from Big D. She also, let's see, not only counsel, but she was big in C.S. Lewis. I knew that when Beate came and she started sitting in my chair at the C.S. Lewis group, that she might be coordinating it for her time here, which she did. We had some great time reading that C.S. Lewis stuff together. We're still doing that, by the way, out on the Silent Planet on Thursday nights at 6 to 7. It's getting exciting. I think it was Sawyer said, you know, this book is starting to get really interesting. Yeah, right? Something like that. Anyway, but let's welcome to come and share with us her story and some cool stuff about what God's doing in her life. Beate. All right, thank you. You don't need your clicker, right?
Nope, don't need the clicker. No PowerPoint. Not visual today. Thanks, Charlie. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some new ones. Me. A little bit about me. I was born in Garland. That's in Texas near Dallas, which is part of the Metroplex. Basically, the city doesn't end until you get to the other side of Fort Worth and then some. It's all city. So you don't really ever leave the city. I graduated from Garland High School in 2009 and started here at the University of Tulsa that fall. I graduated last May with a bachelor's in Spanish. Yo hablo español. Yo sé, no tengo un cara de una persona que habla español, pero yo hablo español. The past year has been a great adventure for me. I moved back in with my mom and dad because rent is expensive. And it's been a year of learning and growth. There is a lot to be said about the real world, the adult world, and not being a student anymore. You know, there's a big difference between being able to take off a whole week for spring break and taking a week off without pay. You know, you don't think about those things when you're a student because you've had them for so long. But this last year I found a lot of purpose in my life. I worried a little bit when I graduated with a bachelor's in Spanish about what I was going to do with that. I didn't want to teach. Teaching's not my calling in life. And as someone who knows a teacher, I know that if you don't put your heart and soul into what you do with that, you're not only destroying the profession by being a teacher who doesn't care about their students, but by being a teacher who doesn't care about teaching. So I found employment elsewhere. Who's ever been to Walmart?
Me.
Me too. About 5 times a week. I started working at Walmart last July. It was my second time around. They hired me the summer before as a cashier. And it was an interesting start. Because here I am, I'm a college degree holding, multi-language speaking, can do math and can do long division in my head kind of person. And I'm a cashier at Walmart. And I got a lot of, oh, why do you work at Walmart? Oh, what are you doing with your life? I actually have someone who used to be a friend from middle school who I bumped back into, and when she found out I was working at Walmart, she was just like, listen, I thought you'd be doing better things with your life by now. I don't want to be your friend anymore. Yeah. Which was heartbreaking and hard, but I was like, I'm happy here. I have found a place that makes me happy about myself and happy about what I'm doing. I'm not necessarily the big fish in the small pond, but sometimes I feel like I'm the cleverest, and sometimes I feel like I'm the nicest. And I really feel like God put me at Walmart for a reason. I'm a people person. I like to talk to people. I like to talk a lot. And there was a day when I was kind of grumpy because I had to open, which means I was at the store at 7 o'clock in the morning, which means I had been up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm not an early riser, so that was kind of early. And I'm at the store and I'm checking people's stuff out. And I get this lady that comes through that just looks like she's been sobbing. And I was just like, hey, are you okay? You know, like what's going on in your life? And so I stood there for 30 minutes as a cashier and had a conversation with this woman about how her father had just died and how her mother with Alzheimer's was now her sole responsibility. God has put me in a place where there are people that need someone to listen and people who need someone to care. Here on campus, that was easy. There were always friends, there were always people. There was always somebody who was having some sort of crisis, you know, whether it was class or boyfriend or stuff, you know? There's always something going on in lives here because you're so close to everybody around you. And I really feel like God has shown me some purpose in my life by putting me exactly where I was supposed to be. Even though it's not somewhere I ever expected to be. And that's sort of what I have to say today, that even if you don't know what you're doing next, even if you don't know what you're going to do with your degree, even if you haven't figured out what you're going to major in yet, that's okay. Because God's got something planned for you, and it's going to be wonderful. And I might come back 10 years from now and be invited to speak again and have some story about how I'm saving lives in Africa or doing inoculations in South American jungles or climbing mountains in the Himalayas to bring modern healthcare to cultures that have survived without modern medicine, as it were, for thousands of years. But right now, I am just doing exactly what I'm supposed to be. My walk with Christ has been fairly simple. I grew up in a Christian household. My mom was my Sunday school teacher in middle school. I'm a bit of a know-it-all. I know stuff. I remember random bits of trivia. I can remember weird things like there was a guy in the Bible who got made fun of for being bald, so he asked God to send bears to attack the youths that had been making fun of him. I remember that story. Won Bible Jeopardy with it more than once. And so that's sort of my experience growing up. God was always there. Christ was always part of my life. I was always at church, always at Bible study, always exactly where I was supposed to be. And so finding Christ in my life has never been difficult, but finding purpose and looking for God in everything is something that I have had to learn to do because I always expected Him to be there. I'm rambling, aren't I? Life is a great adventure, and there are easy paths to walk and there are difficult paths to walk. And there are choices to be made. And there is great wisdom to be found in looking to the life lessons of others and not making those same mistakes. And at the same time, you have to do what's right for you. You have to make your own decisions and make your own bad choices and stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning when you have things to do the next day. Because that's going to happen. I never really struggled with my biggest struggle in talking with God was never, I've broken the 10 Commandments. I can't lie well at all. I have one of those faces where you can just tell that I'm bad at sarcasm even. I really am. And the rest of the 10 Commandments have never really been a struggle for me. I had someone once, we were sitting down to brunch in the cafe, and she said, we were talking about sin and going to church, and she said, it must be so hard for you. I was like, what? What's hard for me? For me, she was talking about that her sins in her life, she was partying and drinking and staying up till all hours and doing things like that. And it was being destructive in her life. She said, it would be so simple for me to say that I'm not going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to make good choices with my life today. But for you, your sin's more internal. It's more the pride and a lot of it's pride, and things like that. And when you struggle with being prideful and not being humble, it's much harder to stop those things because they are so inherently a part of your nature. My ego gets a big boost every time I'm back here at the Wesley because everybody's so excited to see me. And it's a humbling experience at the same time because I know that I am no better than anyone else that is here, that God has so many wonderful things planned for so many of you. And it's I just can't wait to see what He's got planned next for all of you. I know there's going to be wonderful things that you are going to go and do and see and be a part of in this world. And no one person can do it all, despite what they tell me. So if you've never asked about God, or if you've never thought about God, or if you just show up for the free food, that's fine. But if you're thinking about what you're going to do next with your life, or if you're searching for that purpose in your life, or if you want to know more about what unconditional love is, ask somebody here at the Wesley. You know, Charlie's really good to talk to you about all of this. Ron's good too, and there's everybody that's on council that has their story to share, and we force them all to get up here and tell it when they're seniors. But if you're not sure about what you're doing with your life, know that if God can put me at a Walmart at the right time, at the right place, to do something nice for somebody else, even if it's just one good thing that I've done in all of my time that I'm going to spend at Walmart, because it's going to be like 3 years at this point. I'm going to have to get another degree if I want to do something else with my life, right? That He's put you exactly where you're supposed to be too. I think that's all I've got. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Great, good to see, sis. One story that reminds me of a story of this guy that was the peanut vendor in Madras, India. He ran a peanut business on the beaches, and he had a wheelbarrow, and he rolled it around and would sell peanuts all day on the beach. And one day he decided, he says, hey, wait a minute. He says, what am I doing this? Because I'm president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer of this whole unit. So what am I doing rolling a wheelbarrow around him? Now, on the one hand, he was that, but on the other hand, his peanut business was bankrupt. But he said, I'm better than this, and so I'm going to go into the nicest restaurant. So he goes into this sidewalk cafe restaurant that's big bucks. I mean, it's the guy, he walks in, the maitre d', has a little thing hanging over his, the white thing hanging over his arm, and says hello, and says, can I help you? And he says, yeah, I'd like to have the nicest seat in the house. Okay, and so he takes him out right by the beach, a little hedge, and he's right there at this table with a great view. Says thank you, and then the waiter comes over and says, can I help you? He said, just bring me the best, whatever you've got. I want the best, because I'm president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. He's a big deal. And so then he's sitting there, the food's coming out, but then the guy walks over, the maitre d', and says, I'm sorry, we're really crowded today. You've got an extra seat. Would you mind if I seated somebody with you? And so this guy walks over. He's looking, fairly different than the peanut vendor in his garb. He's got a nice suit on and kind of gray around the temples, kind of a well-to-do looking guy. And so they get in the conversation, and the businessman asks the peanut vendor, he says, hey, what do you do for a living? And he says, I'll have you know, I am president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer of a very important business concern. So the the businessman's pretty impressed. He says, well, really? He says, wow, I've got some pretty big financial friends and backing. With your experience and my backing, what do you think we go into business? So the peanut vendor sits there and goes, wait a minute, I don't even know who you are. I'm not just going into business with any dude coming walking off the street. And the guy goes, oh, pardon me, I'm sorry. I thought you might have seen my picture in the paper. My name's Warren Buffett. And so now, what do you think the peanut vendor did then? Did he grab the guy's hand and say, you better believe it, I'm going to business with this guy? He started to. He reached out his hand, and then he pulled it back because a little voice said, hey, you go into business with that guy, and he's going to want to be president. You're going to have to be vice president. So for 2,000 years across the table, God has been making the same deal to bankrupt humanity. Blessed are the poor in spirit. And what did we do? Well, what did this guy do? He stood up and said, I don't need you. And he walked out loftily and went back to his wheelbarrow and bankrupt peanut business. Because why? He didn't want anybody else to be president. So, but the good news is, but as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God. In other words, God makes that beautiful deal to us, just like he's made to this young lady right here, just like he's made to all of us. And if we say, but the kick is, who's going to be God? That's kind of the rub. It's like, oh, is he going to be Charlie? Because I came out of the womb, don't know about you all. I wasn't quite the Jacob because I wasn't a twin and didn't have my brother's heel grabbed from the start. But I'm a wheeler, dealer, grabber, mover. I'm out for number one most of the time, except some guy does help me sometimes. So that's the deal he offers us. It's incredible. It's beautiful. Let's pray.